What is up, folks? Justin Khanna here. It's so good to see you. This is going to be a bit of a unique video. I need to give you some context first. I don't know if this is going to be a podcast, if this is just going to live on YouTube. I know I want to publish it on Patreon first as kind of like a thank you early access kind of test thing for the Patreon fam. But the core of why I'm making this is because this video didn't turn out how I wanted it to turn out, right? So a little backstory. We're in LA, Anna and I. This is back in February, and I had this reservation at Majordomo, right? So I was pumped. I covered the opening of this place on the podcast. Of course, David Chang has been making massive waves lately, and I was like, I'm going to shoot a This Place Called episode about it, because not only did I want to document it and show you folks who maybe wouldn't normally go to Majordomo, but also with it being so trendy, and I'm almost positive it got a ton of nominations this year for some really exciting awards, and then that helps me because if people are searching for Majordomo, they'll probably stumble upon my channel. So it was maybe like 3 hours before that meal. We had these really amazing taquitos. If I have photos, I'm going to show them up on the screen right now if you're watching on YouTube. From this really old place in downtown LA. It's like a really, really old taquitos stand, and they were delicious. So we aren't really all that hungry when we show up to this reservation. And then I realize, oh, shit, I forgot my lens that I normally shoot This Place Called episodes with. And I was like, well, I've only got this manual. I shoot with this manual. It's called SLR Magic 35mm f1.2, and it's a cine lens. So it's made, quote unquote, made for video. But it's very soft, and it's not super sharp, and I shoot all these episodes in 4K usually, and so I was like, well, this is going to provide, it's going to prove for some really poor quality, not poor quality, just not normal up to par This Place Called quality. And I was like, okay, you know what? No excuses. This will be a nice creative constraint. It'll be a challenge for me to shoot, and this could be a really amazing meal, so I have to shoot it, right? And then we get there, and then they're like, your table isn't ready yet, sir. You can sit outside if you want. And at this point, we've been eating all day. It's a late reservation, and I'm kind of like, let's just get to the first option we have, because we were trying to fly out the next day, and I wasn't trying to get crazy or have a drink at the bar and wait for our table. And so I'm trying to be conscious of our level of hunger, right? And also realizing how pumped I am to experience this place. And I tried to navigate the menu and order how I would normally order while also shooting a This Place Called episode. But as I started to have the meal, I was very quickly realizing that I was not enjoying our experience. And so I reached this weird crossroads with all this footage of, do I make a full This Place Called episode and share my weird, opinionated thoughts that come with this baggage that's like my own doing onto myself? I knew I was going to try to have this meal. I didn't have to eat those taquitos. But at the same time, it was like this weird element of LA, you're not cool enough kind of thing when we arrived. And so do I scrap the whole thing? Because it's not like it was a god-awful meal. It's not like I got food poisoning. No one spilled wine on my shirt, right? It's just, I wasn't in a good enough headspace to make a good video, and the food and the service wasn't anything that I would want to ring home about. So that's what this video is going to be, and that was a very, very long intro to basically say that I want to create an element of behind the scenes with this. I want to share my thoughts on the experience. I want to talk about the food. This might be a little bit longer than a normal This Place Called episode, but I just want to do like a Justin Reacts to style video with all of this footage. I have it here in Final Cut running 1080p just so that my computer doesn't completely shit out on me. I do like to get some establishing shots as I approach the restaurant. I think that gives some context as to where it is. I like the ability when I'm looking at other food blogs to be able to see, this is what it looks like when you're walking up to the restaurant. And then if I go experience that, I use those as kind of like check markers in my mind, especially in where Majordomo is located in LA. Bleh. That provides for some really cool, it's like a reveal, because you go down this back alley and you turn down and you see this glowing neon sign with the Lucky Peach logo there, and I think it's really, really cool. I shoot everything handheld. I don't have any sort of gimbal or tripod setup. I like it. I like that it's kind of scrappy and handheld. It feels like you're there going into the restaurant. Again, this is all manual focus, so I was dialing in my exposure a little bit, opening the door. I usually like those kinds of shots. Getting some shots of the menu. If most of you remember what Momofuku Ko was like, there was artwork similar to this all over the restaurant. And so While Momofuku Co. doesn't present you with menus, Majordomo has the option to incorporate some of that art into the menus itself. Capture Anna. So usually when I am dining out with people, I try to get footage of their faces, usually smiling or laughing. Sometimes I give their Instagram handle if they've like usually never been on the channel before. But yeah, Anna just being cute. Look at that bokeh. That bokeh looks great. This footage looks so good. I usually don't have a mic on the camera. We'll get into that later once we get towards the end of the footage. Usually I don't spend a lot of time at the bar. Sometimes I will, but I think that these definitely give some insight into... I like to share not just what my experience was, but the other options in a restaurant space, because most places have different experiences you can go through. You can come with a group of 6, and this is what your experience is going to be like, or you can come by yourself and you can sit at the bar. And I like to cover those things, especially because they're huge money makers for the restaurant, and they put a lot of resources into making sure that it's a good experience. I would probably say something in the voiceover about it being kind of grungy in here. It was like all exposed ventilation on the top. No aesthetic choices in particular with the lights, the obvious tin roof on the top. I like the lines in the shot. I think that's one of the reasons why I decided to shoot it. Yeah, it was a very large, high ceiling place. Very large, very rowdy. A bunch of this graffiti all over the place. You can kind of see how this leads into the backyard. I mean, it's not a garden. It's like a backyard. It's like a backyard patio kind of thing. There where this door opens on the side, that's probably the shot that I would use, because in my videos I like to include shots that are a little bit more dynamic. People walking by, pans flinging, bottles of wine being opened, drinks being poured, doors opening, windows being, curtains flailing in the wind. I like motion in my shots, the establishing shots. I shoot a couple of these shots. I would probably make the decision of, do I decide to put this place called text like here? I don't know if my cursor's showing up, like in the top left corner of this scenario, or do I go all the way back and do it here, where I would do it on the right here of this place called? I think I was playing with some racking focus here, if I was going to go from out of focus to into focus in the shot and then reveal this place called Majordomo. Some shots of the graffiti. Again, super, super cool. Look at this little superhero peach guy, David Chang, and his branding on point. Let's go into it here. Yeah, so this is something that I would probably include because, again, they said our table wasn't ready and we could sit outside. They had these little heaters up towards the top. And this is where I started to see for myself, like, oh, this footage actually is looking kind of cool because the bokeh looks nice. Depth of field is great. It's not crazy soft because I was shooting at 4K. I will always get a shot of the menu. This is you can see some banding going on. And that's because of the fluorescent lights outside. So what I will almost always do for myself as a mental note, because I don't want to forget what I was eating and drinking, because again, this was almost 3 months ago, I will often take shots of the menu. Sometimes they make it into the video, sometimes they don't, but it serves as kind of like a note for me so I can see what does the restaurant list it as. Because sometimes you'll have interesting points about the grape, or sometimes it'll say France, but it's really from Loire. And so I like to at least give myself the thing that I can Google afterwards. And that's something that I've just been doing for ages since I've been shooting meals. Shot of the wine here, again, banding, which is kind of annoying. Nothing much I can do there without formatting my card and losing all of my footage. Okay, getting into the food now. So we have peppers that were tempura fried, and these were stuffed with lamb sausage. They were served with like some sort of creamy dipping sauce, ranch, something. Delicious. I don't necessarily think that this was great bar food. What you'll notice most here, and I'm going to hit play again, is that it's almost a, let's see here, almost a 20, 25 second coverage of this dish. And what I've noticed is that's typically like 15 or so seconds for the server to explain what it is. I usually have my camera ready to go to shoot these. And then it's another 10 seconds of me just pointing the camera at the food, making sure that everything's in focus. That makes it also so that the food never gets cold. I'm not posing it in any way. I'm capturing it exactly how it looked on the table. If a leaf fell or if a component tipped over, sometimes I will prop it back up just from my chef nature. I know that the chef wanted it a certain way, and because of it traveling to the table, something got messed up with the presentation. I'll sometimes prop it back up, but for the most part, I leave it exactly how it is as it comes. What was this? Did I not get this menu? as I talk about how I like to get the menu to remember different things. Apparently I didn't get the menu on this. That's fine. So this was like a flatbread. I'm pretty sure it was a fermented style dough. You can see kind of how the camera captures this a very, very interesting swirling up here in the corner. But yeah, nailed focus on the bread. It was all right. It was not charred like a naan. It was not as fluffy as a pita. It was a little bit more dense. I want to say that this is just his attempt at, instead of a traditional bread service, we're going to take this thing that other cultures will use as their quote unquote bread. And the cool thing about it though is they have it with a couple of different sides that you can use as kind of like spreads or dips. So this is a chickpea with sesame and a little bit of chili oil. It's very similar to that hozon that we had in at Momofuku Co, which was kind of cool because I had just eaten there probably like 10 days prior to that. See, I really like the look of this shot. It's very, very soft up in the corner. It's almost dreamy. Maybe I need to start shooting more of this place called episodes with this lens. So this was a dish of pork with pineapple, very interesting play on like al pastor almost, cilantro, lime, had this like kind of chili based sauce next to it. It's a bigger dish than it looks, which is fine. It was delicious. It's exactly as tasty. It was exactly as tasty as it looks. This was like a pasta with bok choy and peanuts and crispy garlic. I don't think they called this a carbonara. It was a tasty pasta dish. Pickled mushrooms with pea shoots. Nothing crazy. Just a big, massive plate of mushrooms. Again, this is a little bit larger than it looks for just the two of us. Okay, moving on. This is some cabbage with a little bit of pecorino and macadamia nut. All right, this was actually really, really tasty. And so this is duck. She's pouring a sauce of duck and orange on it. That little puff there is mandarin. There's some shaved turnips, and then it's crispy rice on the bottom. So she pours that sauce over. You've got your zhuzh of mandarin there, and she kind of breaks the top of the crispy rice, stirs the duck together, incorporates all that sauce. This was super tasty. I had no complaints with this dish. It was perfectly cooked duck. The rice was very, very satisfying. Parts of it was crispy. Parts of it was just tender. Turnips added a nice flavor that you could actually taste the orange. I like the idea of it being mandarin instead of traditional orange. Yeah, we couldn't finish it. It was just the two of us for this entire Le Creuset pot of stuff. If I made this for Anna at home, this would serve as leftovers for us for the next day, and that's what we did. We took leftovers from the next day, and just the fact that we didn't even order dessert, we just cut right to total was $146.73. As you can probably tell, it was great snack, followed by great bread service, followed by pasta, which was very meh, to be honest. This pork dish, pickled mushrooms, smoked cabbage, great duck dish. I don't think that this was, maybe my expectations were too high. I definitely think that he respected the produce. I think everything that he probably wanted to accomplish was there. It was just way too much food for two people. I think that the structure of it lends great to a double date. If Anna and I were with even two of our foodie friends here in Seattle, it probably would have been a fantastic meal. But for the two of us, not being super hungry and just feeling like it was too mass produced. I know that there's a lot of, you know what it felt like? It felt like if Momofuku Noodle Bar opened up a larger space where it's like, we're trying to be grungy and hip and don't give a fuck about you, but there's like 65 people in here as opposed to like 20, And so that is a little bit unnerving when you see so many front of house people walking around, but none of them are making an effort to make a connection with you. And I think that was also an issue where if you're in a cool, grungy environment, it's a little bit easy to come to terms with the fact that the server might not have time for you, which is fine because you see that they're running around doing other things. This was like, there's 4 people standing behind the host stand. And that's a little frustrating. I absolutely hope that this doesn't come off as me bashing Majordomo in any way. I just think that there could have been a better structure of the menu for a two-top, and I don't think that's too much to ask. I think that the portion sizes are much too large. I think that Anna and I could have ordered the mushrooms, the cabbage, the duck, and a bottle of wine and made it out of there for $90. which is not, well, maybe not with a bottle of wine, but you know what I mean. And I don't think that that's great. Like for someone that wants to come and really experience a bunch of David Chang's food, I think that there should be different options for people to order smaller items. I mean, like $16 side dishes, dude. Come on. And that's I guess my only issue. And the other part with the service, but I've already ranted enough on that. So going into some behind the scenes, I asked a couple of questions from you folks on Instagram, a couple of questions from you on YouTube community post. I think I want to start with YouTube because there was only one question there. Omnivorous Adam says, do you let the restaurant staff know that you'll be coming in with a camera, or do you just send it and keep the gear and shots low key? As I said, as I started this video, it's my Sony a7 III 16-35 G Master lens on there. I don't have a mic. I don't come in with a tripod. I don't come in with a lighting setup because it's the reason I purchased this camera. It's so good in low light, and I shoot in 4K, where I have some ability to crop or change things or boost exposure if I need to. I don't shoot in any log profile, so there's not really a ton of color correcting that goes on there. I just try to nail my white balance and I'm good. And that setup makes it seem like I'm just taking photos, which is great because I would consider it less disrupted because it's not like, I'm not like constantly taking photos as I go. I don't let them know that I'm coming in with a camera, because the fact of the matter is I'm documenting my meal, and I don't think it's any more intrusive than a phone. And I have never had an instance, I think somebody else asked this on Instagram, Karsten.jj on Instagram said, did a restaurant ever deny you to film in their place? I've had a couple of coffee shops and a couple of places, but this is when I'm like vlogging, like normal travel vlogging. I've had places say that you can't film in here, but especially on a tasting menu experience, most people expect for there to be some sort of a food blogging aspect to it. And I've never been turned away. I've never been requested to stop, and I think that's great. Spencer Dunnison asked something similar. Do I ask for permission ahead of time when I make a reservation? No. I try to keep the staff's faces out of it unless like they're homies and I know who they are, or if, you know, the chef is already a personality of his or her own, and then it's fine. At Jacob Moust asked, what a camera and attachments do I use? One camera, one lens, even though looking at this footage makes me kind of want to use that Cine lens now. I have Kev.Jung ask, how do I capture my meal without the filming getting in the way of my experience? I hope I answered that in the footage, and you can see that with a 25-second clip, how it kind of breaks down. Sorry, I just wanted to hit all those questions. Adam, I didn't mean to cut off your question. Also, food-wise, do I generally order whatever sounds good in the moment, or do I research the menu? I don't normally research the menu. If there's a tasting menu, that's usually an easy choice. But it's not a review, right? It's not me trying to get, well, I need to order 2 things that are cold, a soup, a salad, and 2 main courses for us to share to make sure that their fish and their protein game is on point. It's, what would I order? What am I craving? What do I want to see? What sounds good to me? What's going to maybe inspire me to cook food of my own? If I see that they have, like for this meal in particular, they had a cabbage dish and a pickled mushroom dish on the menu, and I cook like that all the time. I love cooking with cabbage, and I pickle mushrooms very often on my menus. So I want to see, do they do it differently than I do? Is my stuff better? Is it because they add certain elements of umami, or they use a different acid to pickle? And that's all stuff that's very, very inspiring for me, and also making sure that it just rounds out a meal. I wouldn't want to order an entire table of vegetables in the same way that I wouldn't want to order an entire table of pasta. And that's why I like going out to eat with friends, because they help me, one, make sure that I can order more, but also like they make me be cognizant of different people's tastes. If I was just going out to eat and ordering things that I wanted to eat, it would become a very monotonous thing to see me constantly order. I mean, I will eat the whole menu. There's nothing that I don't eat, but I would hate for you folks to have to watch the same meal happen over and over again because I order the same things. I think that it's nice to be cognizant and be empathetic to what other people like to order. Similar question here from Costs of Goods Told. What prep, research, and storyboarding do I do before filming? That's not the point. The point is to document my experience, and I love that that's how these videos have been. The one piece of feedback that I have gotten is I'm the only food blogger, quote unquote, food vlogger, who includes the cost at the end of the meal. And I think that's important, right? Where it's like I go to rye and the whole meal gets comped. I would hate for you to think that that is how I'm balling out all the time. If I'm pretty sure we got a decently significant discount at Single Thread as well, which was great. But you folks should know that. You folks should know if I haven't had any requests for restaurants to pay me to make these kinds of videos. What is my favorite going out to eat show that I've done? That's a good question. I think the most fun has been to see the Osteria Francescana video blow up. That almost has 75,000 views on it right now. And I say fun because it's been interesting to see people that aren't used to watching my videos come in and like experience this place called Episode. Not just that, but the people who are just roaming around the internet who are interested in talking shit about expensive tasting menus and food that costs more than fast food or cheap, inexpensive grocery store food. That's been very interesting. And I like that. I like interacting with those people and seeing other people in the comments not defend me, but defend that style of food. And it's an interesting like insight into consumer psychology for me. Other than that, if I had to pick a favorite one, the first one was amazing, Bateau, because that was my first time really getting this unlock of like, well, I don't want it to be a food blog. I don't want it to be me holding the camera in front of my face, reacting to food that I'm eating. It really wasn't, I don't want it to be chef's table where it's super cinematic. I just want it to be like if you were that fourth seat at the table of three. Or if it was a table of four of us and you were the fifth person, what would the point of view look like? Would you capture the vibe of being there? And that definitely stands out. Cinematically, I think that the lighting at Angler was amazing. I think some of the shots that I was able to get in Angler, and maybe this is top of mind because it's super recent, but I really, really enjoyed the cinematic nature of Angler. I really just think that their food is beautiful and presents really well. And the lighting was great for someone with a camera at the table, which is great. Okay, a couple more behind-the-scenes things that I just want you folks to be aware of. In Final Cut Pro, there is a sound effects tab. And what I will often do there is I will go in and I will plug in restaurant sound effects. Is that what it's called? Go play. Maybe you can kind of hear it. So it's just a very ambient, plates clanging, people talking, servers interacting, glasses clinking, footsteps walking around. It's very white noise. And what I will often do with that is I will take it in and I'll plug it in underneath the footage, decrease the level on it, and so you kind of have this underlying restaurant feel as you're listening, especially if you wear headphones while you listen to these episodes, and that will prevent the effect that sometimes happens when you're shooting clip after clip after clip of this hard stop between clips where it's like, boop, and then that's when the audio will start. That was a big unlock for me as I was thinking about sound design on these. Was I going to, if you listen to the very first This Place Called episode, I do fake footsteps for my friend Trong walking up to the restaurant. I think that that's important to make you feel like you were there. Other thing that I will often do is do music. Usually it's from Epidemic Sound, which is what I use for all my videos now. A couple people on the Osteria Francescana video got mad because I used Italian music from a place that was not Modena or not Emilia-Romagna, which is fine. And I'm not mad that I might have offended people, but I think that overall, if you're living in Canada, I think that the music that I chose gave the overall vibe of like, well, I'm in Italy. And I don't necessarily always think that that's the point. I didn't want to use like modern American Japanese music when I did Single Thread. I didn't want to do like California-based music when I did Angler. I didn't want to do Southern music or blues when I did Rye. I picked songs that would have maybe been playing in the dining room there. Or when I think back to what did it feel like to have that meal, what music fits that? Was it upbeat and kind of lively? Was it a little bit more composed and eloquent? And that kind of dictates what kind of music I put in. As far as doing the voiceover, if I had to tell someone, you need to go to Majordomo and you need to order these crispy fried peppers, what would I tell them? And then I would probably say like, The cornmeal batter on the outside was amazing. The sausage was tender and kind of spiced on the inside, and it was a really nice sauce to dip in. This was a great way to start a meal when you have a sparkling beverage or a beer. But then, yeah, from there, the audio gets dragged into the timeline. I will chop that up into what I will then call a compound clip of the audio. So if I have any screw-ups that I want to cut, I will do some fades in and out so it seems like one straight-through read. And then it's very easy, right? Because I have the length of the time that I describe the dish, I have all the footage, and then I just plug and play. If I'm doing a little bit of a longer descriptor on, well, this restaurant has been around since here, it's located here, the chef is this person, this is their philosophy, I'll use any of that B-roll of the aesthetic of the restaurant to kind of give you a visual representation of whatever I'm hopefully talking about. If there are any titles I need to add or any extra text, those will usually go on top of it. I usually have in my head what shot is going to be this place called blank shot. For the most part, everything that I use to shoot these videos is linked up in my kit page, in my media kit. That's everything that I use to produce content right now. Thanks so much for watching this behind the scenes episode. If you want to get early access to videos like this, please go ahead and support me on Patreon. That's the easiest way to get access to all of my behind the scenes content. That's more than just videos like this. I have one more in the pipeline that is shot and just needs a voiceover and a little bit of a recap, and that is from this place called Tarzan E. Jane here in Seattle. Very interesting tasting menu. I have a ton of thoughts to share on that experience and that meal. I apologize if this went too long. Thank you so much for watching. My name is Justin Khanna, and I hope you have a good one.